Opposition.
Good evening. The proposers of this motion are arguing, as I understand it, that selection is an unequivocal good. I think that's the phrase that Graham Brady's. He's not shaking his head against me, so I think that's the phrase, that selection is an unequivocal good and will promote social mobility, especially for working class students who are disadvantaged, and particularly by the present system, I guess. I believe that this represents the result of selective experiences on the part of the proposers of the motion and a selective memory that involves eliminating most educational history. Let me tell you about the people who failed the 11th class. Friends of mine, many of them, who didn't get to grammar school, who had to go on a second or a third chance, whose whole careers have been blighted by the experience of failure. 80% failed the 11 plus. This was a social evil that was eliminated. Do we want to go back to it? What grammar schools actually were was a bottleneck. They selected the top 20% and then got really appalling results from them. So, for example, in 1959, 40% of the students failed to get more than 3 ordinary levels, the equivalent of GCSE to a higher grade today. Only 3% of the people at grammar schools who got 2 A levels, only 3% came from working class backgrounds. The variation in recruitment across the country, this to me was one of the worst scandals of it, varied. Selected for grammar school, Merionethshire, 64%, Gateshead, 8%. So the postcode lottery that people worry about today was nothing on the regional lottery that prevailed in the grammar school days. We've also forgotten the research that was done when the grammar schools were in their golden age. Jackson and Marsden's book, I recommend it to education students, it may seem a bit arcane for everybody else, but they described what they saw as the colossal waste of talent of working class students in that system. Why did they say that? Vast amount of statistical research. You were less likely by a huge margin to be selected for a grammar school if you were working class. You were much less likely to do well, especially if you were a girl, and you were much, much less likely to go to university. Working class children did not do well under the grammar school system. If you doubt the class bias, look at the Crowther report on early leaving from school. They found, by studying the entrance to national service, which some of you probably hardly even heard of, military service for young people, entrance, 75% of the middle class entrants had been to a grammar school and 85% of the working class entrants had been to a secondary model. Doesn't sound like much social mobility going on to me, sounds like social reproduction going on. In the golden age of social mobility, when all these wonderful opportunities opened, I'm picking 1963 because that's when the Robbins report recommending the expansion of higher education came about. The total in any form of higher education, including teacher training colleges, which were then quite a big part of the higher education offer, there were 216,000 people in the entire country entering and serving in all those forms of higher education. In 2011, it's 1,300,000. Now, whatever's wrong with comprehensive education, whatever failures, and there are plenty of them, plenty of poor schools, plenty of disappointments, whatever you may say, it has not stopped an enormous increase in the number of young people going on to higher education. The sixth form, the opening up of sixth form education is the key to that. More important than the comprehensive schools, actually. It meant that ordinary people could stop on at school and find their way through the system. Under the grammar school system, there was no sixth form for secondary modern students. There was no second chance unless they applied and got into a grammar school. So not much doubt that comprehensives open massive new opportunities, especially for women. For the women here today, I just say to you, when I went to university in the 1960s, women were a small minority of those. In my university, Cambridge, there were 3 women's colleges and 20 plus for men. Today, women are more than half of the students. I believe that the opening of opportunity through comprehensive schools and the expansion of higher education has been good for female opportunities and has been good for working class opportunities. What grammar schools did, and I don't deny that many people had a fine education in grammar schools. They were bright, on the whole middle class kids who did well and had good teaching and did go on to university. They were a tiny minority. The system failed all the rest, and without doubt they failed the 80% who didn't go. Why, I ask now, in drawing this to a close, why should it be different a second time around? I want to end by saying, is ed selection an unequivocal good? You'll hear from our opponents what was good about it. Let me tell you what's bad about selection. And those of you who perhaps have attended selected schools, do you recognise any of this? If you go to a selected school and you only meet other selected people, how good is your sense of yourself and where you fit into the social order? If you're in a selected school with a smart blazer and an esteemed halo hangs about you, how do you feel about the people who didn't get in? How do you feel about the people on the streets? Do you develop perhaps a sense of entitlement? A sense of your own self-worth that puts you in a different pedestal? And of course, I may say this, I'm not preaching comprehensive schools for other people. I went to a comprehensive school, my children went to comprehensive schools. I wouldn't have wished a competitive, pressurised, high-performance examination on my children, and I wouldn't wish it for other people. Finally, the narrow academic goals of education, all those subjects that aren't really worthwhile. Is that the final bell? I'll stop on that point and ask you to oppose the motion. Thank you.